The Israeli Air Force has made a decision, and the fighting in the Gaza Strip undergoes a tactical revolution. Welcome to this special edition of Boots on the Ground. I'm your host, Yair Pinto, and today we're going to give you an in-depth look at what's happening in Israel as we dive into the Air Force's combat revolution. This is more than just a change in the way that the Israeli Air Force strikes. It is a revolution in military affairs that is already changing the face of modern warfare worldwide. Since the launch of Gideon's chariots, the current round of fighting in the Gaza Strip, we are already seeing a new layout of the Israeli Air Force that includes less bombing by fighter jets, more precise operations, and significant coordination with the Navy. It's all about close support for ground troops using UAVs and attack helicopters. This is being done in order to redirect the fixed-wing aircraft and related forces toward broader operational activity in the Middle East. Strikes in Iran and distant Yemen are complex operations that require sending aircrafts, refueling planes, and of course, putting the pilots at risks. So why has Israel chosen to focus on smaller, faster aircrafts? Is this a mistake that needs correction? Let me know in the comments. Is this context? The question arises is why doesn't Israel fire long-range missiles at Yemen in response to the Houthi launches instead of sending pilots on a long, dangerous mission beyond enemy lines? Do you have the answer for that? Let me know in the comments. We'll provide the professional explanation for this question. And meanwhile, the Israeli Air Force is preparing at the home front and the General Staff systems for a multi-front war, ensuring continuity, defensive readiness, and protection of vital operational components. So get ready to dive into all the in-depth analysis of the Israeli Air Force. I'm Yair Pinto, and this is your Boots on the Ground Explainer Edition. Today, we're examining the brave fighting of the Israeli Air Force in the war against Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis in Yemen, the Shia militias in Iraq, and all the other armed groups in this region that are acting under the orders of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, which is the head of the axis of evil in the Middle East. In just a moment, before we take off with all the details, I want to invite you to continue spreading the truth and to support us with a click on the subscribe button. It helps us reach more people. So let's begin with the fighting in the Gaza Strip and how the Israeli Air Force is doing its part. The Air Force is changing the way that it strikes in Gaza by making less use of bombings by fighter jets in favor of more precise, close support from maneuvering troops using UAVs, drones, and attack helicopters. In the first days of Operation Gideon's Chariots, the Air Force of Israel acted with great intensity, carrying out hundreds of bombings, sorties on Hamas and Islamic Jihad targets throughout the Gaza Strip, including terrorists and mid-level commanders of Hamas. It included also tunnels and buildings that were used for storing weapons and containing explosive devices and weapon systems intended to harm IDF maneuvering forces. These strikes, using heavy munitions, aimed to break Hamas's defensive lines in Khan Yunis, in Jabalia, in northern Gaza, in Gaza City, and in the central camps. But now that the IDF has deployed 5 divisions into the battle, including all its regular forces, 3 armored brigades, 5 infantry brigades, the Commando Brigade, and 3 combat engineering battalions, the Israeli Air Force had to shift its force operation and move to close support operations, mostly based on intelligence from the Shin Bet and military intelligence, as well as fire control centers of maneuvering battalions and brigades operating numerous aircrafts over Gaza's sky. The main firepower now comes from UAVs and attack helicopters immediately available to strike in response to battlefield developments and the needs of the maneuvering ground forces. This is in contrast to what happened in the first days of the war, when the Israeli Air Force struck every known terror command post in the field, sending hundreds of sorties every day, utilizing bunker-busting bombs and focused GBU-39 barrages. Every intelligence-marked target got personal treatment from the sky. There was a complete focus on Hamas targets, including operational squads, headquarters, launch sites, and tunnels running under residential buildings and public institutions. The first hit Khan Yunis, Jabalia, Gaza City, and every refugee camp that turned into a bunker for Hamas terrorists. But then, something changed. In this round, the IDF went big on ground operations instead of distant strikes and indirect fires. Suddenly, the Air Force stopped acting like a detached squadron and became a soldier on the company on the ground. There was a shift from long hours of coordination with headquarters to direct and immediate connection to the forces at the front lines of the battle. Anytime ground forces spot a threat, the Air Force responds like a team member. UAVs and Apache helicopters circle above, not waiting for instructions. They're part of the immediate response. So if a terrorist emerges, he's hit with pinpointed fire. If there is suspicious movement on a third floor, the balcony vanishes. This shift is dramatic because Hamas, the terror group that thought it ruled the field, has suddenly and totally lost control. Every building that they thought was safe all of a sudden becomes a death trap as soon as a UAV arrives. Every attempt to set up an anti-tank squad is interrupted in under 2 minutes. This is no longer an Air Force that bombs at night and then flies away. This is an aerial force living near the ground, spotting, reacting, and supporting the ground fighters at every step. It's not detached fire, it's tactical fire, smart, sharp, and synchronized to the platoon commander level. This breaks Hamas's entire operational logic. They don't know whether the blow will come from the ground, from the air, an alley, and a backyard. Intelligence assets follow them from every angle, and fire lands on them within seconds of the emergence from cover. And this exactly, is what reinvents the whole concept of combat in the Gaza Strip. Because for the first time, the Air Force doesn't just strike, it fights. It doesn't just hammer bunkers, it covers its comrades. It doesn't just prevent future threats, it eliminates threats mid-battle. And when the warriors of the sky fight like soldiers on the ground, Hamas, with all of their tunnels and their slogans, simply loses control. It only reacts. And once an enemy is only reacting, it's no longer winning. So guys, continue spreading the truth about Israel by sharing our videos on YouTube and following us on social media. So if you love this content, we love to be honored by financial support so we can create more videos like this one. So if you want to help us share the truth, go to tbnisrael.com/give. Again, that's tbnisrael.com/give. And donate any amount, because everything that you do helps us share what's happening and creating more videos like this one. This is a spiritual war, and we know whose side God is on. And guys, speaking of which, since the beginning of the war, the Israeli Air Force has struck countless times deep behind enemy lines in dangerous territory. This raises a question about why Israel sends its planes and its pilots on such dangerous missions far from home instead of just responding to the Houthis or to the Iranian missiles with our own long-range missiles, which we have very, very advanced missiles. So on the surface, it seems simple. Launch a ground-to-ground missile quickly and hit the target precisely with no risk to our own warriors. It even seems cheaper than risking a fighter jet and a pilot training. But once you dig deeper, the story changes entirely. One of the main claims from advocates of a missile core attack in Iran and Yemen is the cost angle. And on this point, they have a point, because a missile certainly is cheaper than a fighter jet. But then again, the fighter jet that struck in Yemen also conducted strikes in Gaza, also in Lebanon and Syria and Iran. A missile is a one-time use item. Once it's launched and hits, it's gone from inventory. When comparing missile costs to aircraft munitions, the longer a missile's range, the more expensive it is. A LORA missile with a 400-kilometer range costs about $3 million per unit. Missiles with ranges of 1,500 to 2,000 kilometers can cost tens of millions each. A medium or long-range missile costs 10 to 20 times more than an aerial munition. Some missiles cost nearly as much as a fighter jet, which can perform missions for 40 years or more. The maintenance cost of missiles and launchers and the readiness infrastructure are also no less than maintaining a fighter jet. So if you're talking about a serious missile force, it may cost even more than the aircraft. A missile launched to Yemen or to Iran carries a warhead weighing half a ton to a ton, and it is effective only against a limited range of targets. Furthermore, launch preparations are relatively easy to detect, especially with long-range missiles, as we saw before during Iran's attacks of Israel. The launch itself is detectable, and the trajectory is fixed and interceptable. Just look at the Iranian launches at Israel, which included dozens or even hundreds of ballistic missiles with only marginal damage relative to cost and effort, to see how limited a missile's power can be. On the other hand, a fighter jet can carry 10 to 11 tons of bombs and missiles and hit multiple targets or change targets mid-flight if needed. The damage that a plane can inflict is therefore significantly higher than a missile, and beyond that, air-launched munitions have better penetration capabilities than missiles, which is critical for Israel when targeting underground infrastructure and tunnels from Gaza to Iran to Yemen. Finally, air power can be approached from multiple directions and fly below the radar, making interception very hard. Equally important, from a political and diplomatic angle, jets allow plausible deniability, unlike ground-to-ground missiles. Yes, munitions launched from jets can also be intercepted, as we saw in Syria, but because of their size, price, and quantity, many can be launched from several jets, overwhelming air defenses and hitting the target. This is far more cost-effective and efficient than using expensive missiles. A missile core is therefore nothing more than a niche used for very specific targets. It can be a force multiplier, but it cannot replace or substitute an active air force. No advanced country in the world has a missile core instead of an air force, or even as a major part of one. In fact, terror groups and some of Israel's hostile threats, the states that are attacking Israel, rely on missiles and on rocket forces because they do not have the ability to maintain an advanced air force. Just look at decades of rocket and missile attacks on Israel to understand the differences. So guys, here at TBN Israel, we will continue to update you on every development regarding Israel's Air Force and the revolution in military affairs. As always, we ask you to help us spread the truth, share our videos on YouTube, subscribe to this YouTube channel, and follow us on social media. And of course, hitting the subscribe button on this channel helps us reach more people. That's all for today, guys. I'm Yair Pinto. Thank you for uniting in prayer for the peace of Jerusalem, for the IDF, for our hostages to come back from the Gaza Strip, and in general, for wisdom to our leaders. Let's continue praying for the peace of Jerusalem.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.